The higher the intelligence of the prey, the more likely they are to strike.
Well, that's a little hurtful.
Even if you've never rolled a 20-sided die, Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves is a fun-filled and wholly accessible fantasy adventure that leans into the spectacle and silliness of D&D campaigns. Sure, there are plenty of in-jokes and Easter eggs to delight hardcore role-players, but they never come at the risk of losing newcomers. It overstays its welcome a bit, but this light-hearted fantasy adventure is worth seeing to the end. The cast is very clearly having a blast playing familiar character types you'd select from at the start of any home D&D campaign. In this case, it's a heist-like quest to rescue a kidnapped daughter from the clutches of a treacherous lord, played with sleazy suaveness by Hugh Grant. Chris Pine shines brightest as the wisecracking Edgin, a lute-strumming man with all the plans. Plans which usually need a few iterations, adding more humor as he improvises on the fly.
5 questions, at which point he will die again, never to be re-revived.
Were you killed in the Battle of the Everhorse?
Yes.
4 more questions, right?
Yes.
Michelle Rodriguez is her typically badass self as the axe-swinging warrior Holga, and Regé-Jean Page steals scenes as the virtuous paladin Zinc, who speaks in eye-rolling prophecies.
I find irony is a blade that cuts he who wields it most especially.
You're not a lot of fun, are you?
Everyone falls into rhythm as unexpected teammates with a common goal and contrasting personalities. Writers and directors John Francis Daley and Jonathan Goldstein emphasize lighthearted entertainment that lifts Honor Among Thieves above cumbersome lore, as red wizards corrupt innocents or the hero party must explore underlands searching for hidden artifacts with special abilities. The spectacular nature of lava lakes or battlefields where fireballs rain immediately catches the eye. There's never a moment where all the fantasy world building becomes overwhelming, since we're only told what's necessary. Honor Among Thieves is a visual feast of fantasy landscapes, from luscious treetop villages where woodland folk reside to quaint towns that resemble architecture with favorable comparisons to the Shire in The Lord of the Rings. There's fantastic costume work that showcases dragon-human hybrids and furry tiger people, and a graveyard scene oozes with Sam Raimi-style dark humor.
Only answer when I talk to you, okay?
Yes.
Why did you say okay at the end of that?
I didn't.
Fantastic. Where's the shovel?
There's also plenty of digital effects that produce adorably chubby dragons and all kinds of fantasy races made from different species hybrids with scales, fur, or gills. A few choice sequences feature floating orbs or other animated objects that are less convincing, but those rougher moments are far outnumbered by all the moments of visual effects wizardry. The two biggest problems with Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves are its excessive length and how all the best moments rest on the shoulders of just 2 of the main characters. While Daley and Goldstein are able to find cheeky humor by poking fun at dungeon masters who overcomplicate puzzles or make challenges obscenely absurd, going on for over 2 hours leaves too much time for comedy that can fall flat. And while there's plenty of room for an all-timer cameo as Holga visits her ex-boyfriend and Hugh Grant chews through dialogue as a splendid main antagonist, Honor Among Thieves is never better than when Pine and Page take control.
Oh, I could kiss you!
Try it.
When they step back, the energy dips, and what's otherwise a rollicking castle crasher becomes a more mundane series of sword and shield clashes. That said, Pine and Page are so charming that the lulls of Honor Among Thieves feel less disruptive than they otherwise might. Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves may not be as epic as The Lord of the Rings or as treacherous as Game of Thrones, but there's nothing wrong with being the jokier sibling of the fantasy adventure genre. Writers and directors John Francis Daley and Jonathan Goldstein display a passion for Wizards of the Coast's famous tabletop role-playing game through humor that both roasts and respects dungeon masters everywhere. You're here for the mystical creatures, magical enchantments, and everything Chris Pine does as a laughable yet persistent bard. It's a bit longer than its storytelling can comfortably sustain, but special effects go a long way in holding attention as dragons, flames, snarling monsters, or other flashy effects and costumes often dazzle and delight. There's plenty to honor here beyond sticky-fingered thieves, which hopefully is the start of an on-screen universe that only gets stronger as quests continue. For more, check out our reviews of Scream 6 and Cocaine Bear. And for everything else, stick with IGN.
The bridge is protected by an ancient trap. We must not trigger the mechanism.
I may have triggered the mechanism.